What's up, everybody? It's Jeffrey Lyles, welcoming you to another edition of Lyles Figure Files. They say a hero is only as good as their villain, and in Marvel Comics' case, that is absolutely true. There are a slew of great villains that we've seen over the years, and we're seeing them not just in the comics, now we're seeing them in cartoons, TV shows, and movies, and of course, the reason I'm talking today, in figure form. As a longtime Marvel Comics fan, I am very excited every time I see the reveal of a new villain. It's like, yes, great, we're getting this guy. This is awesome. I really was excited to see that Kang figure, and they did such a great job on him. Ditto for the Dormammu, the Ultron figure that we've wanted forever and finally got the definitive classic version of Ultron. Jigsaw, if you haven't gotten him, Walgreens has him available on their website right now, so rush, run, go get him. But there's still so many great villains awaiting their first Marvel Legends figure. And we have this weird dynamic right now where we're getting such a wide scope of villains. We're getting characters like the Human Fly and Razorback. And those are awesome. I love seeing those fringe bad guys. But I also want those A-, B+ villains because they're essential to the fabric of any great villain display. You see, I've got my villain shirt. This showcases so many of the big heavy hitters, and I love this because it has pretty much all the major villains. I want to see that reflected better with my Marvel Legends collection. There's still figures that I'm going, dude, why is this figure still not here in my collection? This guy should have been made a long time ago. And Hasbro is kind of complicating things further by going, yeah, we need to tweak this Scorpion figure. Let's make him lighter colored so he's more like the cartoon. Let's ditch the green mask around his mouth, put the skin tone back. Oh, look, let's change his hair up a little, and let's tweak that Rhino figure. And those are fine, but they're taking away slots from villains who've never gotten a figure. And I don't want to see a case where Hasbro loses the license or they're $35, and I don't want to get a figure of Paste Pot Pete at that point, because I'm like, dude, you should have gotten him when he was $20. You can't make that figure worth $35 and me happily buying it. So I put together a list of the 10 most overdue villains, the ones that are screaming to be made. And even though, yeah, Hasbro's knocked out an MCU version, we still need a comic book version of this character. And that's pretty much not the case with most of the figures, most of the characters I chose in this list. There's 2 examples, but everybody else is just waiting on their debut figure, which I think is so weird, especially as I break this list down. And one thing, as I was going through it, I wanted to look at the different heroes and go, hey, is your arch enemy made into a figure? For Captain America, for Thor, Spider-Man, Wolverine, the Avengers, X-Men, Punisher, that's a big yes. Lots of these characters, lots of these teams have their equal opposite number. Reed Richards has his in Doctor Doom. Most of these guys do. But a lot of my top 10 reflects those characters whose arch enemy is still waiting to get made. It's like, hello, don't forget me. And those are my priorities because I want to get their opposite, their mirrors, done in figure form. So let's take a look and break down my top 10 most overdue Marvel Legends villains. I want to start off with a character that I think, because of his movie appearance, he should get a comic book version maybe a year down the road. That's kind of worked in most cases. I'm hoping this is the case here as well. It's Attuma. Attuma is the arch enemy of Namor, the Submariner. Great villain. He is the Black Mana to Namor's Aquaman. We gotta have him. He's so important to the line, and he's a big hulking bad guy. And even better, it doesn't just stick to fighting Namor. He fights the Avengers. He's fought them on several occasions. First up was when he fought Cap's kooky quartet. And we've got those figures. We've got Cap. We've got Hawkeye. We've got Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. So we can put them in the water, the ocean, whatever you want to do. If you've got your figures, you take them down to the beach, you can have them fight Attuma right there. I love to see that guy. He just has such an awesome look. The MCU version looks really cool. And I'm hoping that we also get to see Tuma's really cool comic book look in figure form. Give him maybe that new Buck, maybe they just do the Grim Reaper Buck for him because he's big. He should look stronger, buffer than Namor, and just go all out with that outfit, the helmet, the whole deal, and let him go tearing up our Avenger squad. Love to see him. I think he's overdue because he's been around forever, and he's such a long-term villain. He's somebody that's kind of been underserved, underwhelmed. I haven't gotten any figures lately of this guy. I think he only got one back in the Fantastic Four animated cartoon line back from Toy Biz. So he didn't even get a Toy Biz Marvel Legends figure. So he's really, really overdue for a figure. I think he would look great. And here's an MCU character, another one, who was kind of prominently featured in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So maybe the fringes of the MCU. But he was also a big time player in my favorite modern cartoon, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I'm talking about the guy that helped band the group together, Graviton. Graviton is a really cool villain. He controls gravity. And when you can go toe to toe with Thor and Hulk because you can control their density, it makes you pretty formidable. And we've got a few Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. figures. There's some rumors that Daisy may be showing up in the MCU. Maybe there's an opportunity to get Graviton. And we could go with the clean shaven look. We can go with the fully long hair, beard look. I mean, he's got some cool attires over the years. And I'm not necessarily so wedded to one particular look for him. But Graviton is a guy who can fight the Avengers. And as the Avengers has more members, we're still getting team members for that squad. I want to see more bad guys who can take them on. Okay, and this week, She-Hulk is about to debut on Disney+. She-Hulk doesn't have an extensive roster of bad guys, but she has an arch rival. That's Titania. And Titania is a great villain. She has an amazing look with those spikes, the whole leather deal. She looks formidable. And she's somebody from Secret Wars. And for me, anybody that's in Secret Wars gets extra bonus points of being a cool villain. She's a powerhouse. She was a member of Zemo's Masters of Evil that took down the Avengers in Under Siege. So she has super figure-worthy cred with me because she's been part of a super villain group. She's battled the Avengers. Then she goes toe-to-toe, hates She-Hulk. She-Hulk, I guess we're still waiting on a great comic book She-Hulk, but we need to get both of those. But we really need a Titania. And I don't think that the Disney Plus version of Titania looks anywhere close to the cool, amazing figure design or character design we've got in the comics. And what that Secret Wars look with all the spikes, the thigh-high leather boots, the whole deal. And while we're at it, maybe we can get a resized, toned-down Absorbing Man who fits in scale better with everybody as opposed to being this janky, non-out-of-scale character that doesn't work with anybody now. Love to see that. Maybe we can do a 2-pack with those guys, but we don't have a lot of supervillains that are couples. I think it's kind of cool to get them. Maybe a 2-pack, but we need Titania because she's way too cool. She can fight a whole crop of Avengers on her own. Pair up with Absorbing Man, we've got a squad that can fight the Avengers. So definitely need her. Let's get her in there. I think they do a really good job with her articulation. Now that we've got the biceps, the double jointed elbows, give her a reel, some mass. Maybe use whatever you can, part reuse for She-Hulk. I understand that she's got those spikes that are going to make it a little bit harder because there's not a lot of reuse potential, but Titania is too cool to be sitting on the sidelines, never to get her figure. So let's get her as well. Then, I know a lot of you loved the Inhumans TV show. It had some issues for me, but it did shine a little spotlight on the team. The Inhumans are an important group in the Marvel Comics lore, history. I mean, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee put those guys together, and I feel like, much like Secret Wars, Jack Kirby creations, Steve Ditko creations deserve extra bonus consideration for inclusion in any figure line, especially one as comprehensive as the Marvel Legends line has been. And so, Maximus is the archenemy of Black Bolt, of the royal family himself. He set up the zone to block out the Fantastic Four so Johnny and Crystal couldn't be together. And I think if we get their villain, this will give more incentive to Hasbro's team to crank out more of the Inhumans. There's not really a lot of the royal family left. We need Crystal. She can work with both the Avengers, Fantastic Four, in addition to her own family squad, Gorgon, Triton, Karnak, Lockjaw. I mean, that's a 5-pack, but come on. We need Maximus. I love that green outfit. That's the Kirby look with the crown that he borrowed from his brother, stole from his brother. Maximus is really essential. He has a really great, colorful design. We need Inhumans. We need a corner of our display showing off one of the tightest groups, one of the tightest families in the Marvel Comics universe. And we need their bad guy, main villain as well. Let's get Maximus. Next up is a character who has an MCU figure. And in a pinch, it kind of works, kind of fits in okay-ish. But he's still got the small, slighter, more realistic to the actor scale, and not the big, hulking, massive portrayal that I want for this guy. You probably know who I'm talking about at this point. Scourge, the Executioner. One of the founding members of the Masters of Evil. And super massive bad guy. Teams up with Baron Zemo, the first one, and Enchantress. And these guys are great villains because they're just like, it's just the three of us. We'll take on the whole 5-member squad of Avengers. We don't even care. We'll get Wonder Man to join us and we'll do the thing. Also featured in Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I think the Hercules Thor buck would work fine for him. I wouldn't be upset if he were any bigger. But give him that big, massive axe. Maybe even give him a couple of M16s. Let him go to work. But I feel like as I look on my shelf, I see Enchantress, and I see the Toy Biz Baron Zemo, the original Baron Zemo. He still holds up pretty well. If I could just get Scourge, I would feel really happy having the original Masters of Evil going against my Avengers and just having a massive figure fight with those 3 against those 5. But we got to get an Executioner in here ASAP. And again, if you haven't watched Earth's Mightiest Heroes, I so recommend it. It's great. So many cool storylines that they use for the cartoon. The cartoons even serves as inspiration for some moments in the movies. You can't get a better nod than your cartoon being referenced in a movie. But Executioner got a great Enchantress. I could stand for Baron Zemo, but he misses the cut because that Toy Biz figure still holds up okay. If I were to do a top 20, he would be on that list, but Executioner needs a Marvel Comics version ASAP. And then I already mentioned Titania getting that boost because she was in Secret Wars. We need one of the most important characters, one of the most important villains that's still left to be made from that era, from that comic book, that amazing 12-issue maxi series. I'm talking about Molecule Man. And Molecule Man was a Fantastic Four villain. It's kind of odd how many of these great villains came from the minds of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. He fought the team on his own, controls molecules, and in Secret Wars, Dr. Doom realized how powerful he was, so he made him his number one dude. Like, hey, I gotta make sure you're cool so you keep everybody else in line. And he did. And Molecule Man fully tapped into how powerful he was. He was great. Got those lightning bolts on his head. I want to see like the passive head sculpt and then an angry one. But I mean, seriously, you got a guy who can take on the Thing, the Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Girl / Invisible Woman. And then, just for kicks, I'll go ahead and take on the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Thor, Iron Man, the X-Men, Spider-Man, Hulk, just for laughs too. I don't know why this guy hasn't been made in figure form. He shouldn't be that hard to do. We've got guys with tunics. All we need is that little cool lightning thing going along his chest. We got him done. I won't be greedy and also say, let's get Volcana too. She needs to be done, clearly. But she's not as important to me as some of these other characters. But if we were to do a Secret Wars villains box set, yes, with maybe a Spider-Ham as the special bonus inclusion figure, I'd put her on there too. But yeah, Molecule Man is definitely an overdue villain. He's been too important a villain, a main bad guy, fighting a Fantastic Four. And of course, his inclusion in Secret Wars makes him super necessary. All right, so again, Fantastic Four. This is so weird because it took so long to get Fantastic Four figures back in the Marvel Legends line, and every time Hasbro does a line, they kind of handcuffed. They have to do all four in one wave, which means there's only spots for 2 or 3 supporting characters or supporting villains. I was kind of hoping we'd see this guy in the retro one, since it seems to harken back and be more of a nod to the cartoon series. And the cartoon was so great, and I kind of want to see that soon. So this guy, my next choice, is the Wizard. The Wizard is another arch rival, arch nemesis of Reed Richards. He fancies himself just as smart, just as brilliant as Mr. Fantastic himself. And he's the leader of the Frightful Four. Again, we're getting really close to getting that team done. It's only 4, so getting him would knock us more than halfway done. We've got Medusa. We've got Sandman. Let's get the Wizard, because he can fight Johnny Storm on his own, but he can also fight Reed Richards. And he's got those anti-grav discs that can send everybody flying into the air. And at least with 3/4 of the Frightful Four, I can kind of fudge and get a team to fight the FF. Maybe say Ben's away somewhere, but the Wizard is really necessary, really key. And again, the Trapster / Paste Pot Pete is definitely a character I want to see really soon, because I think the Frightful Four is one of those rare, great supervillain teams that's been enduring, lasted for a long time. Kirby Lee creation also. So let's get the Wizard now, so then I can start going back next year and going, hey, the Trapster's overdue. We need to get him into figure form too. We got to start. Let's get the Wizard in this line. I'm almost done with this list. This is going so quick because, I mean, these characters are so obvious, so necessary. I'm sure you can come up with them too. This is a character that's had a Marvel Legends figure from Toy Biz. But this guy really, really needs a Hasbro version. And I get there's some kind of like, we don't want to be too offensive. But there are different versions of this character that can work and aren't offensive. They take advantage of the 10 rings that show off how cool he looks without upsetting people. Of course, I'm talking about Iron Man's arch enemy, the Mandarin. The great thing about the Mandarin was because while Tony Stark was so techie into science, the Mandarin was more old school mythology. So he had those 10 rings that did different abilities. I loved how the Toy Biz figure individually sculpted those rings, even painted them differently to tease the different powers, the different abilities that the Mandarin had as a result of using them. I guess in a pinch I could go with the suited body and the hands, but he's got some really cool supervillain costumes that would look great. I'd love to see this figure, because the one I have now is just in a robe that can barely support him. He's got an old school head sculpt. I think you can still modernize it. Take a look at the Iron Man Sean Chen version of Iron Man, the Heroes Reborn, Heroes Return version. I think that version would work just fine as a figure. But we gotta get him soon, because Iron Man's main villain is still waiting to get done. And the biggest travesty of the MCU was Iron Man didn't really fight his Lex Luthor, his Joker, his Green Goblin, and just kind of had to settle for an imposter. But that doesn't have to be the case for our Hasbro Marvel Legends. So we can still get him in figure form and finally retire that old Toy Biz version. Okay, so next up, Baron Mordo. We've seen this guy since the first Doctor Strange. He's been in the MCU for a minute. He's had several figures, one from the original Doctor Strange film, then with the multiverse version, Master Mordo. But I want the classic comic book, old school version of Baron Mordo. The guy who looks like the opposite of Doctor Strange, with a long flowing green robe, kind of mirroring the Steve Ditko color scheme set up with Spider-Man and so many of his villains. Spider-Man, of course, with the red and blue, so many of his villains in the green, yellow color motif. So kind of like to see that reflected a little bit better. Old, balding dude, sinister face, looking really evil. I want to see Baron Mordo, and I know he's a character that has been very involved, prominently featured in the MCU, but he's overdue at this point for his own comic book version. He's a classic, old school villain, and he really should get made. We've got that classic 70s definitive version of Doctor Strange. Now it's time to get his opposite number. I thought it'd been really cool since we got this Walmart Doctor Strange to get the Walgreens Baron Mordo. That way we could have the equivalent to him in exclusive form. Hopefully that is still coming. We have Dormammu. Now we can put his number one lackey, his number one henchman, who also wants all the power for himself, Baron Mordo. So hopefully he is coming because he's long since passed. My final choice is the guy who can single-handedly take on all the Avengers by himself. It doesn't matter what squad, you can take the whole 8 heavy hitters list of Avengers of your choice, put them up against him. This dude's still going to smile and fight him. He's the guy who can shrug off Mjolnir hammer strikes, repulsor rays, energy effects, look at Giant Man and Wonder Man in the same breath and not bat an eye. He can see the Thunderbolts and the Avengers coming up on him and not worry whatsoever. He's killed an X-Man, and oh yeah, he's even taken on Superman. Of course I'm talking about Count Nefaria. This guy is such an amazing looking villain. He's got one of the best designs Marvel's come up with in the past 40 years. He's got the elegant black with the white, the big cowl with the yellow inner lining for his cape. Man, and then the cape just hangs to the side. It's such a great design. We've seen some of the best Marvel artists work on him, from John Byrne, George Perez, Mark Bagley. All the heavy hitters have done him, and every time he shows up, he looks cool and he is ready to go. And he doesn't care what Avengers he's fighting. I mean, this dude can fight Thor one-on-one. He can battle Cap. He can catch Cap's shield, throw it at everybody. Doesn't care. He's not going to get rattled when Black Panther and Beast come at him using their agility. He doesn't care. He can beat down Wonder Man. He can look Giant Man Goliath in the eye and punch him down to the ground. He can swing Iron Man around, take Vision's density beam, match him toe to toe, crack him in the head even though he's at maximum density. This dude is the best villain that we don't have in figure form from the Avengers, from Marvel, because he's fully capable of taking down the Avengers by himself. And then if you want, you can even do the dream match based off of that Justice League versus the Avengers scene and have him fight Superman. How many villains in Marvel can take on Superman and go toe to toe and not bat an eye? That's Count Nefaria. So we've got to have him in there. So that's my list. So I'm break down my list one more time. Attuma, Graviton, Titania, Maximus the Mad, Executioner, Molecule Man, the Wizard, the Mandarin, Baron Mordo, and Count Nefaria. Hopefully within the next year, some of these guys will get taken out because they're long overdue, and it's time for Hasbro to bring them into the fold, bring them into Marvel Legends line, so we can mash them up against their heroic counterparts. So that's my list. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. This episode of Loud's Figure Files has been filed.